Nobody in this line signed up to fight women. That's what I keep thinking, standing here with a shield that suddenly feels too small. Whatever's coming down that road isn't a Roman army, it's a nation, and it wants us dead for what we did to it. I'm 14th Legion, Legio 14 Gemina. 3 years in Britain, most of that spent building roads, digging latrines, and getting rained on somewhere north of anything worth calling a city. Nobody trains you for this. Nobody trains you for standing in a gap in the hills with maybe 10,000 men at your back and, walking toward you across an open field, more Britons than anyone in this line can count. That number gets argued about for the next 2,000 years. One Roman writer just calls it unprecedented. Another, writing a century later, throws out a figure over 200,000, which is probably his own imagination doing the marching. Modern historians who've actually tried to do the math land somewhere near 100,000. Doesn't much matter which number's right. From where I'm standing, it's all of them, and it's still coming. I didn't see how this started. Nobody in the ranks did. We heard it the way a legion always hears things, in pieces, growing a little with every mile it travels down the column. A client king named Prasutagus dies up north in Iceni country sometime the year before. Client kings do that, keep their crown as long as they keep the peace with Rome, and when they die, everything's supposed to pass along quietly. Prasutagus tried to be clever about it, left half his kingdom to the emperor, half to his own 2 daughters, betting that Nero would take the compliment and leave the rest of it alone. Rome's officials on the ground didn't read it that way. Some say a man named Catus Decianus, the procurator handling the province's money, saw an old debt called in and land free for the taking. What's written down, and I only have it the way it came down through the ranks, same as you're getting it from me now, is that the widow, a woman named Boudica, was flogged in front of her own people, and her 2 daughters weren't spared either. I won't put a word to what was done to them. You already know the word. Whether every detail survives exactly the way later writers set it down, I can't swear to. What I can tell you is that whatever happened up there was ugly enough to turn an entire province against Rome inside a matter of weeks, and every soldier in this line believes that part, whether or not we'd say so to an officer. Camulodunum went first. Old colony town, veterans settled there after their service. A great stone temple to the divine Claudius sitting right in the middle of it, like an insult the Iceni and their neighbors the Trinovantes had been chewing on for years. No wall worth the name. The town never thought it would need one, not that deep in what was supposed to be settled country. Boudica's people burned it to the dirt in a matter of days. The 9th Legion, Legio 9 Hispana, marched to relieve it and got cut apart on the road for the trouble. Infantry all but wiped out, the legate himself barely getting clear with what cavalry he had left. Whatever survived of that legion limped back north in pieces, and word of it moved faster down every road in Britain than any dispatch rider could carry it himself. Then Londinium. Our governor, Suetonius Paulinus, was clear on the other side of the island when it started, finishing a campaign against the Druid stronghold on Anglesey, burning their sacred groves by what I heard, which some of the older men in this line mutter might have been its own kind of spark. One province testing its patience right as another one broke. He force-marched the army back the moment word reached him, outran the rebellion to London, took one look at what he actually had to work with. Too few men, no wall, no time to build one, and made the call that's going to get argued over for the rest of Roman history. He left it, marched the garrison out and let the city burn rather than lose the whole field army trying to hold ground that couldn't be held. I wasn't there for that decision. I was still coming down out of the northwest with the 14th, gathering up whatever we could of the 20th Legion along the way, and every mile we covered we passed people running the other direction. Not soldiers, just people, carrying whatever they could carry and leaving the rest. We marched through what was left of Verulamium a few days after. I'd never seen a town like that before. Not burned in a fire that got away from someone. Burned deliberately, house by house. The people who couldn't run fast enough left where they fell. Nobody in the column talked much through that stretch of road. You don't need an order to go quiet. Word passing down the line said the tribes weren't just killing, they were making examples of it. And some of what's written down afterward about captured Roman citizens in those towns is bad enough that even the historians writing for a Roman audience didn't try to soften it much. I won't repeat what I heard pass down that column. I'll just say it did its work. Nobody marching with me needed convincing anymore about what losing this fight would mean, for us or for anyone still alive behind us. Paulinus sent word to every unit he could reach. The 2nd Legion, Augusta, was garrisoned down near Exeter, days away on foot, but reachable if they moved hard and moved now. Word came back that they weren't coming, not delayed, not marching at all. The officer holding temporary command down there, a man named Poenius Posthumus, simply didn't move his men. Nobody in this line knows exactly why, and the histories don't agree either. Some say he judged the cause already lost and wouldn't throw an entire legion into a battle he thought was already decided. Some say worse things about the man. What I know standing here is simpler. We've got maybe 10 or 11,000 men, counting every auxiliary cohort scraped together from every fort along the way, against a force that outnumbers us by more than anyone in this line wants to say out loud, and one full legion that could have evened those odds is sitting in a fort 3 days south of here, doing nothing at all. There's a particular kind of quiet that settles over a camp the night before everyone knows a battle's coming, and half of them privately think it's already lost. Fires burn low. Men check gear they've already checked twice. Nobody sings. A veteran a few tents down from mine, old enough to remember Camulodunum before any of this started, keeps saying the same thing to anyone who'll listen. Hold the line. Don't break rank to chase a kill. A legion that holds together beats 10 times its number. A legion that breaks apart dies to a 10th its number. I don't know if he believes it or just needs to say it. Somewhere past midnight, I hear 2 men arguing low, near enough that I catch pieces of it. One's asking why we don't just fall back further, wait for Augusta, wait for anyone. The other says there's nowhere left to fall back to that doesn't mean giving up the whole province. That Paulinus has already decided the alternative to fighting here is losing Britain outright. Neither one of them sounds certain. I don't think anyone in this camp is certain tonight. Supplies are thinner than anyone says out loud. We've been marching hard for days on whatever we could carry or forage, and the quartermasters have stopped pretending there's a comfortable margin left. That's part of why we can't just wait Augusta out, even if Posthumus changed his mind tomorrow. Every extra day standing here is another day closer to a fight we can't even feed ourselves through. Paulinus knows it. I think that's half of why the order to form up comes as early as it does. Here's the question that keeps circling in my head while we wait for the order to form up. If you were Posthumus, sitting in that fort with your legion intact and word coming in that the whole province is burning behind you, do you march your men into odds like these, knowing you might be marching them into a slaughter that changes nothing? Or do you hold what you can hold, keep one legion alive no matter what happens up here, and let the field army carry the risk instead? I've heard soldiers on both sides of this argument around the fires tonight, and nobody's settled it. Tell me in the comments which choice you'd have made, because standing here, I still can't decide which one makes you the coward, and which one makes you the man who's still alive to write home about it. Paulinus didn't run any further than he had to. He picked ground. Somewhere along a road that gets called Watling Street, centuries after any of us are dead. So don't go looking for that name on a map from this year. It doesn't exist yet. What matters is the shape of the place, not what it's called. A narrow gap between 2 rises, thick forest close behind us so nothing can circle around to our backs. High ground climbing on both flanks so we can't be surrounded from the sides either. And open plain stretching out ahead where an enemy has no choice but to come straight at us if they want to reach us at all. It's worth saying plainly, since you're going to hear other channels claim they know exactly where this happened. Nobody today can point to the field with real certainty. Historians have argued for a place called Mansetter, for another called Church Stowe, for half a dozen spots strung along that old road, and none of them have turned up graves or weapons in the ground to settle the argument for good. I only know the ground I stood on that day. It looked exactly like what I've just described to you, whatever name gets put on it 2,000 years later. Paulinus put the legions in the center, packed shoulder to shoulder. That's us, 14th in the middle, what's left of the 20th beside us. Auxiliary cohorts spread along both flanks, filling the narrower ground where the slopes close in. Cavalry held back on the wings, out of sight until they're needed. It's a formation built for exactly one purpose: funnel however many thousands of them there are into a front narrow enough that our numbers stop being the problem, because only so many bodies can physically reach our line at once, no matter how many thousands stand behind them waiting their turn. I've got a javelin in each hand, standard Legion issue, and I keep running my thumb along the shaft of one because it's something to do with my hands that isn't shaking. The man to my left is older, scarred along one forearm, and he tells me without turning his head, "Don't watch the ones in front, watch the ones coming up behind them. That's where the real danger's stacking up." I don't know if that's good advice or just something he needs to say to keep his own hands steady. Somewhere off to my right, in among the auxiliary cohorts, I hear a different language moving through the ranks. Batavian, most likely, tough men from along the Rhine who've made a name fighting for Rome rather than against it. It's a strange thing, standing in a Roman line surrounded by men who aren't Roman at all, fighting to hold a province none of them were born in. I don't think about it long. There isn't time to think about much of anything long, not this morning. Dawn comes up gray and cold, the kind of light that doesn't warm anything. Mist sits low in the gap between the two rises, burning off slow enough that for the first part of the morning we can hear more than we can see. Hoofbeats, wheels, and under all of it, a low sound I can't place at first, until I realize it's thousands of voices, still a long way off, carrying across open ground the way sound does on a still morning. Nobody eats much. What food's left gets passed around anyway, because an empty stomach doesn't hold a line any better than an empty quiver holds off a charge. I chew through half a strip of dried meat I don't taste at all, and give the rest to the man next to me, who looks like he needs it more than I do, though I couldn't tell you why I thought that. They come up the road in a mass that doesn't seem to end. Chariots out front. I'd heard the tribe still fought from chariots, driver and warrior riding together, and hearing about it is nothing like watching it happen. Horses screaming, wheels throwing dirt in every direction, warriors leaping down to fight on foot, and the drivers wheeling away to come back for them later. Behind the fighters, wagons, full of families, wives, children, old men and women, drawn up in a great crescent behind the warriors like an audience come to watch their own men win. Nobody in our line understands that choice, not at first glance. It looks like confidence, like a people so certain of victory they brought their whole world along to see it happen. It's going to look like something very different by the end of the day. Somewhere out there, on a chariot with her two daughters riding beside her, is the woman this entire army has marched here for. I never got close enough to hear her myself, and neither did anyone standing near me in that line. But the story that comes back down through the ranks afterward, the one later writers set down as her words, has her telling that crescent of warriors this isn't a fight over territory, it's a fight for everything already taken from them, and that dying free in a lost battle beats living another day under the men who did the taking. Whether those are anything close to her actual words, or a Roman writer's best guess at what a defeated queen ought to have said, I honestly can't tell you. I can tell you the effect of it, whatever the words really were. That whole crescent went up in a roar like the sky itself tearing open. Our own commander doesn't waste breath on speeches about glory or gods. Paulinus walks the line slow, close enough that I actually hear pieces of what he says, and it's closer to arithmetic than poetry. Hold the formation, trust the ground under your feet, ignore the noise coming off that crescent, because a mob that outnumbers you 10-1 still breaks against a wall of shields that doesn't break first. He's not lying to us about the odds. He's betting, out loud in front of every man in this line, that the shape of this field matters more than the size of that crowd. I believe him, mostly because standing here I don't have another option worth believing in. They come at a run, straight down the length of that open plain, no real formation to speak of on their side, just weight and noise and momentum building with every step. We hold. That's the entire order passed down the line. Hold. Let them close the distance themselves. Don't waste a single step of ground we don't have to give up. At range, the whole front rank throws together on the signal, and I let mine go with everyone else's. 2 flights of iron-tipped javelins arcing out into that charging mass, one right after the other. You don't aim at a single man in a moment like that. You aim at the crowd itself and trust the crowd to still be there when the iron comes down. Then we go forward ourselves, not a charge exactly, more of a wedge, packed shield to shield, each man's shoulder braced into the shield of the man in front, pushing into a line that's already staggering from the javelins. In that narrow gap between the slopes, their numbers stop being an advantage at all. Only the first few ranks can even physically reach our line. Everyone behind them is just weight now, pressing their own front rank forward onto our blades whether those men want to be there or not. The gladius is a short blade made for exactly this. No room to swing anything longer once the lines actually meet. Just a short punch forward under a shield rim and back again before the next man's weapon comes around. It isn't glorious the way the stories back home make it sound. It's close and ugly and repetitive, and the only thing that makes it survivable is that the man on either side of you is doing the same motion at the same time, so nothing ever really gets through to any one of us alone. I don't remember individual strikes from this part, not clearly. I remember the sound of it more than anything specific. Iron and screaming, and my own breath loud in my own ears, and the strange, steady rhythm of the man beside me stepping exactly when I step. Like we'd drilled this precise motion 1,000 times before, because we had, over and over, on a training field neither of us thought would matter this much until right now. Slowly, and then all at once, their line breaks apart. And that's the moment those wagons stop being an audience and become a trap instead. All those families, drawn up in a crescent behind their own warriors to watch them win, now there's nowhere left for a broken army to run to. The wagons block the road home. Men trying to flee are running straight into their own wives, their own children, into a wall made of their own people with nowhere left to go and no way through. What happens after that isn't really a battle anymore, and I'm not going to describe most of it to you. Our cavalry, held back on the wings this whole time, gets loosed into that trapped crowd, and even the wagons themselves stop being an obstacle and start being killing ground. I hear officers shouting orders to take prisoners where they can. I don't see much of that happening in practice. Fear does something to an army that's already broken, and it does something worse to the men chasing it. The historians who wrote this down afterward claimed something close to 80,000 dead on the British side against roughly 400 of ours. And I'll say plainly, those numbers were written by the winning side, for readers on the winning side, and no serious historian today takes that ratio at face value. What I actually saw was a slaughter with no clean edge to it, going on long after there was any real fight left to answer. I keep thinking about those wagons, even now, about a people so certain of victory they brought their own families along to watch it happen, and how that same certainty is exactly what killed most of them when the line finally broke. There's no pride in me telling you that part of it. I marched in that line. I threw that javelin. I'm standing here alive today because a wall of shields held its ground on a piece of earth nobody 2,000 years from now will even be able to point to with any real certainty. That doesn't make any of it clean. It just makes it what happened. Boudica herself wasn't taken. The stories split hard on what happened to her afterward. Poison by her own hand, according to Tacitus, who was writing closest to the actual events and had a source who was there. Sickness, according to Cassius Dio, writing more than 100 years later with a fondness for dramatic endings. Either way, she never stood in front of Nero in chains, and the revolt that could have ended Roman rule in Britain inside its second decade instead became the last serious attempt to end it at all. That night, and for several after, we camp on the same ground the fighting happened on, because there's nowhere else close enough to go and too many wounded to move far. I spend part of it helping carry men to whatever the surgeons can manage, and part of it just sitting, not talking to anyone, because there isn't much left to say that the day hasn't already said for us. Somewhere behind us, word starts moving that Nero, back in Rome, briefly considered abandoning the province entirely after hearing how close it came to being lost. He didn't. But the fact that he thought about it tells you something about how close this actually was. Rome held this island another 350 years after that field finally went quiet. Postumus, the officer who kept Augusta out of the fight, is said to have fallen on his own sword once he learned what his legion had missed and what it had cost. Whether out of shame or grief or something else, nobody who told me the story could say for certain, and I can't either. I don't know if any of this makes what happened here a victory worth having, or just a longer version of the same argument, fought out over centuries instead of a single afternoon. I know what I saw. I know exactly which side of that shield wall I was standing on, and some nights that's a harder thing to carry than the shield itself ever was. If this is the kind of history you want more of, told from inside the line instead of off a map with arrows drawn on it, there's a lot more of it waiting on this channel. Subscribe if you want to keep walking into these fields with me.